next session, we bring back Gregg Cassin for Honoring Our Experience. And if you were here this morning, just a quick reminder, Gregg is a 30-year survivor of HIV. He's been leading retreats and workshops for HIV/AIDS, LGBTQ, and at-risk youth communities for over 25 years. Gregg, we welcome you back to our session this afternoon for Honoring Our Experience. And you are muted, Gregg, so let's... There you go. I think we've got you now.
Thank you. That still happens, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I want to thank everybody. Thanks. And I want to again thank Jill for the work that she does in our community. And I had to leave to so I have a San Francisco story. I am so which is it's like why San Francisco empties out into Palm Springs. I am one of those people that have been here for 40 years, and the reason I couldn't stay on today is I'm losing my housing after 31 years in my apartment. I want to ask everybody to come back onto the screen. Hi, Marjorie. I remember from you from a few weeks ago. Good to see you. Did you hear me, Marjorie? Hi. And let's bring, I want to bring it back to, let's see. I want to bring it back to, oh my God, we're going to be back to that gallery view. Don't make it go to the spotlight for the speaker. Jeff, thank you. Spotlighted for video, everyone. Perfect. Okay, you can still hear me, right? Just wave if you can. Okay, good. Thank you. So, hi, Jonathan. So let's bring on the cameras. Anyone that can bring on the cameras. I'm going to ask you not to spotlight me, Jeff, so that I keep seeing people. I'm going to keep seeing and see. I want to go to the other row of people. Oh, there you are, Jill. Thank you. Hi, Mary. Thank you for being here. Hi, Richard. I met you before, too. How many people were at the one that we did when 2 years, what year was it, Jeff Taylor, when we did the one with the reunion project and we had that big, when we were doing that round table? Was that 3 years ago? Can you hear me, Jeff Taylor?
2 years ago.
How many?
2.
2 years ago.
2018.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jeff. So I wanted to ask, Jill, do me a favor and just tell me a little bit of the conversation that is that you had around the group around isolation and just some of the insights. And then I want to ask some people also, thank you for turning on your cameras, Andrew and Stephen and Nicholas, I see you. Orbit, I see you. This is nice. It's nice to see all the faces. It's nice to see all the, yeah, look at that. When I finished this morning, Jeff Taylor said to get into makeup and hair afterwards. So I guess my camera is not sufficiently like smudged in order to give. I know every time I get on these things, I'm like, Jesus, what happened? So Jill, so say a few words about like what it was like, and then I want to ask for some other sharing. This is totally about us. So, you know, people like get ready to unmute yourselves and let's do a little bit of sharing in this. Go ahead, Jill.
Well, along the same vein, Greg, I was referencing what you had spoken about this morning, and I shared some research about the importance of countering isolation and loneliness, not just because of the mental health issues, but also the physical health issues that are correlated to isolation and loneliness. And then I suggested 10 little pragmatic strategies for overcoming loneliness and social isolation during this period of physical distancing. So ways to cultivate connection. And I echoed a lot of what you said earlier this morning. And we also did a similar kind of gallery so that people could give their input and share their experiences. So that's a quick synopsis.
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much. So this is a community time for us to get a chance to do a little bit of sharing again, because I know there was a lot of information that was given. Hi, Jonathan. So I want to give a chance to hear some sharing. So one of the things that I love doing, and which is also about community building, I was just talking with a housemate of mine, who the guy who saved me earlier today, and he does a lot of facilitating on Zoom. And I told him one of the things that after 30 years of facilitating, I had this one day where I was doing this retreat for young people, queer and trans kids of color in upstate New York. And as we shared, I started just spontaneously doing little, what I felt like were tips, and kind of transparently facilitating and telling them what some of the tricks that I was using, and not tricks, but what I was using, the tools I was using in facilitating. And one of them was acknowledging. And so I want to remind me where I was going with this. This is about acknowledgement. So one of the things that we started doing when we first started bringing together long-term survivors in San Francisco to come to workshops, one of the things we did was at the beginning of the workshop, so we did 6 and 8 week workshops. And this was at the very beginning when we were first kind of coalescing as a community. And one of the things we did was we had people sign that they were going to come to all 8 or all 6 sessions. And we wanted to do that because we wanted to, we knew that there's all kinds of ways that we trick ourselves out of showing up for stuff that we need, right? People nod or wave or anything like that when you see. So one of the things that we did was at the end of each session, this girlfriend of mine 100 years ago, when we were facilitating a big session together at AIDS Medicine and Miracles, she said, well, at Brownie Camp, at every closing night campfire, we always end with thank yous and sorries. And I was like, well, if it's good for the brownies, then fuck, they're the only ones that weren't throwing out gay people. So you got to love the brownies and the Girl Scouts. So one of the things we started doing at the end of every session that I did was that we ended with thank yous. And the reason we ended with thank yous is we so rarely hear of our value and what that when we are present with one another, that we make a difference, that we're giving a gift by witnessing another person's story, and to acknowledge that we know that it takes something to be present. We know that it takes something, well, now it's so easy, right? It's a little bit easier on Zoom, but before you had to coax people to get off their sofa, to get dressed, to get out of the house, to go to a support group. But it still takes some kind of a risk, and it still takes something to make a contribution, to jump in and to participate in something like this. So one of the things we did at the end of every session was we look around so in the groups, we would do it in support groups, but I would say is take a moment and reflect. And so this is going to be just particularly about us as individuals in the community. I want you to take a moment and to reflect either someone that today said something that was moving or inspiring to you, or that somebody that you're glad to see. So I want to name a few different things. So I don't like it when I get so close to that camera. That when someone that you were just happy to see because you haven't seen them around for a while, or someone that has made not even just here today, but that has made a contribution to your life. Maybe it's someone that pulled you out of isolation. Maybe it's someone that has made. So this is about acknowledging, which is one of the most incredible ways to build community, is by looking, and it's also one of those happiness exercises. Any gratitude practice is incredibly powerful for not only for one's elevated sense of wellness and happiness, but also in building a community. So I just want to ask for people to look around this room and in this room here, and make some contribution by thanking somebody or acknowledging somebody that's here. Maybe something that somebody said today, something that somebody did today, or something that has been from the past. So I'm gonna just invite you to, you move ahead and you go ahead and turn off your microphone and begin to share. So why don't you wave if you're gonna do that, so we know someone's heading out.
Go Jill, go Jill.
We're waiting.
Okay, am I?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, I thought I would start us off by saying I was really excited and happy to see Matt today, and just my shout out to Matt to say I haven't seen you in a long time. And one of the things that's hard about the pandemic is that what we would normally be doing in the Annenberg, which is kissing and hugging and schmoozing in between the workshops, we don't have that spontaneously. And so we, again, like what I said earlier, we have to do it intentionally, right? And so I want to intentionally acknowledge and send a shout out and a big and mutual hug to Matt, who I haven't seen in a couple of years. So it's good to see you, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, Orbit, go.
Yes, I want to acknowledge Jeff Taylor, because I am the community chair for the ACTG. And by the way, I'm in New York City. And I was just, because of COVID, I tried to do wellness checks to the cab members. And we have cabs as far away as Bangkok, Africa, you know, international. And I go through when I get a chance. And today I reached out to Jeff to just say, hey, Jeff, this is a wellness check. You know, how you doing? He replied back and said, I'm in a Zoom. He sent me the link. And you're correct. As I was doing the wellness checks to people, I said, well, let me take time, because I'm always on Zoom all week. And it was like, oh, another Zoom. But I said, you know what? Let me look in and see what's going on. So I thank you. I've learned so much about your community. I'm really impressed with it. You guys in Palm Springs, y'all have it going on. But thank you.
Thank you, Orbit. I know timing is everything, right? And you get that little, the thing in your text that there's a Zoom going on. I love it. We've been so lucky with being able to reach out with one another. And when I was planning this, I was like, it's all about Palm Springs, Palm Springs. And then I realized, oh my God, there are friends of mine that have signed up from other places. And that's what's been so incredible. I started a women's support group. And now there are these women that are like from the East Coast, from the West Coast. A woman from Portugal started coming to the group. I don't facilitate it, someone else does. But it's really sweet. Okay, somebody else, raise your hand and someone else jump in.
Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you. Unmute yourself, hon. There you go.
I want to give a shout out to Nicholas Snow. I was very impressed with the success of your therapeutic process. Therapy, I've been in therapy my whole life, and it's totally changed my life. To have someone talk normally with unconditional positive regard, it's an incredible concept. So congratulations and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Richard. Nicholas, please.
Well, I guess that's a nice segue. Hello. I guess that's a nice segue for me to say thank you, Richard, for all of the amazing work that you do. A couple of years ago, when PALS presented at one of these events, I definitely took a lot of notes. And one of the things I have done in COVID, during the COVID pandemic, is I got all of my affairs in order. I mean, every single one of them is in order. And for those of you that might not have been here earlier, I just want to say again that I really think Dr. Gover, who I have outed, I'm her client. I get to see her. And one of the things, just to add to that, I find that when I'm in therapy, I don't need it. And when I'm not, I do. Which begs the question, okay, so that means I probably still need therapy. One of the powerful things I have learned, for those that I find it helpful, is I've learned, for example, that when I get depressed, it's not chemical, it's situational. And I can use mindfulness. And that in combination with long-term participation in 12-step programs, and I want to give a shout out to them as well, have really, given me a life with meaning, purpose, and hope. And I also want to just express my acknowledgement for every single person that has made this happen. Some of you I've never met, but most of you I've known and worked with as colleagues in activism and advocacy for a long, long time. And Brett Klein, it's especially nice to see you. We used to work very closely together in your professional capacity when you were with DAP, and you were forever instrumental in helping to expand my relationship with the agency, which has meant a lot to me personally and professionally. And I could go on, but I won't. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Nicholas. Yeah, so what I love to remember, so I want to remind everybody, when we're doing stuff like in a group or we're at a workshop or something like this, that sharing like this is literal. It's a literal definition. It's an act of generosity, like by turning off that mute button and reaching out and just acknowledging somebody that you're glad that you saw them here, that it made a difference. That's one of the things that when we were doing this acknowledgement exercise, when we first started coming together with the long-term survivors, we wanted to let people know that it mattered that they showed up, that it was a contribution to not only themselves. It wasn't only a thing for themselves, but it was a gift. It was a contribution they were making to everybody that was in that room, to everybody that's on this Zoom, that you're making a contribution to their lives, that every one of us, it is profoundly important to have a sense of belonging. The one study, I don't know if you named it, Jill, is the Harvard study. It's incredible that if anyone could Google search the Harvard study, and there's a guy from it that does a TED Talk, the sweetest human being. And it's just so powerful to hear because it just affirms, I love this work so much. It just affirms our humanity. It affirms that it's not just this intangible stuff. It's real science of our deep connectedness and reliance on one another. It's like healing to be a part, to have a sense of belonging and to be a part of a community. That's why it's so incredibly important. They've done all these studies around communities that have shunned people and stuff, that we see that people can actually tailspin into not only bad mental health, but physical health when they're shunned by their families or by a religion or something. Like the incredible, so like so many of us that here that grew up as queer, that we know very well the importance of a sense of belonging. So I want to keep opening, I want to open it up. So I want to make sure that I see a lot of people here. So I don't want to call on you like a teacher, but yes, Andrew, go. Unmute yourself again. It clicked back.
Sorry.
There you go.
Greg, it's just a joy to see you.
Oh.
I'm most always amazed when I encounter you, and I just wanted to say that. It's like, I didn't expect you to be here, and it's, again, it's the advantage of Zoom that you didn't have to fly down here. But as a predominantly negative person, I'm always amazed to find a positive person like you, and it's just joyful. So thank you for that. As a slight digression, when we were talking a couple of weeks ago about things from the past, I was remembering Dr. Bernie Siegel, and I've not heard anything about him, but I noticed your workshops are AIDS, Medicine, and Miracles, which as I recall, was the name of his book. Is that correct?
Right, Love, Medicine, and Miracles was his book 100 years ago.
Right.
This is like grandpa sitting in front of the fireplace and teaching all the children about the early days of AIDS, and those who like were all new agey, and we like had crystals in one hand and a rabbit foot and affirmations, and we only thought a positive thought. It was, you know, it was the days. It was hard work staying alive. So you had to keep a positive thought. I'm teasing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
Keep going.
I'm not very good at that, but but one of the things I remember him saying is, you know, he's talking about AIDS, and he said in a few years there will be another disease with 5 initials, and then I thought there's Ebola, and now we have COVID, and it's just he's just carrying it through. So it's like prescient and scary.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. I want to thank you just for the compliment and for the acknowledgement. It's really sweet to get, and also to acknowledge one of the things that we do at the retreat is we always bring in HIV negative people. So we've had like partners that are HIV negative folks that have been caregivers. We had at like the second retreat, we had this lesbian nurse who has social worker. She's, you know, she lost 3 times the amount of folks that I had lost. And we had a buddy of mine who is a long-term survivor woman, and her husband came, and it is so powerful to bring the entire community. I'm lucky that I don't have the shackles. Well, I do, but we don't follow it. The shackles of funding a silo. So we let anyone come that feels like they would benefit from joining together in this community that has so much experience and resilience and wisdom. So we always bring in HIV negative people as part of our community, and we bring in now younger folks that are positive. Yeah, it's just fantastic. So thank you so much, Andrew. Okay, who else? Please, Jonathan.
I, excuse me, wanted to thank Ken Lichtenstein on behalf of other medical care practitioners who have dedicated themselves and treated us, even when it was inconvenient, to their personal lives, that they saw us through difficult times. I'm now on my 15th HIV practitioner. I burned them out. And everyone pretty much has just been thoughtful, considerate, helpful, and has kept me alive.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Who else, please? Hi,
yeah,
Brad.
I'd like to mention someone who would have been here today if he could, as part of the Palm Springs community for a long time, positive for a long time, and then became negative. And of course, I'm talking about Timothy Ray Brown, who died a few weeks ago. I'm getting all teary, but I just wanted to let people know that Timothy and his partner Tim were both an integral part of this community. They always came to our events locally. Timothy, of course, was a celebrity, and you know, to his credit, really became the face of HIV cure research. And he's the reason we even talk about it, and that President Obama earmarked $100 million towards cure research. It's all because of him. Wow. So I think we owe him a huge debt of gratitude. And sorry, I want to let people know that his memorial service, we're going to have one tomorrow, Sunday morning at 10 a.m. outside in the Ruth Hardy Wellness Park here in Central Palm Springs. It's at the corner of Tachiva and Miraleste. I'm going to, well, let me hit send on the chat here thing. And so it's going to be outside. We'll strictly enforce physical distancing, so people will be seated 6 feet apart. We'll require masks, but it's a chance to come together as a community and celebrate Timothy and all he meant to us. So if you're able to, I hope you can come. And also we are planning, because he had friends and colleagues all over the world, a Zoom memorial on November 6th. So mark that date for those of you who aren't in Palm Springs or who would like to see that as well. And more details will be forthcoming once we get that planned. And we're also working on putting together a HIV Cure Awareness Day in honor of Timothy. So it's one of the projects we're working on to honor his legacy for us. Thanks.
Oh, that's so nice, Jeff. Thank you so much. I have to say, you know, I've seen Timothy around at all the different conferences, and I just never took the time to sit down with him, and he'd always give me the warmest welcome, but I always felt like, oh, you know, you have to go say hi to other folks. And then just to see the testimonials of what kind of a person he was, it's just so powerful to be reading the testimonials. And I'll never forget the story that I heard, that he was at the US Conference on AIDS, and he would always ask permission, would it be appropriate if I went into the HIV long-term survivor lounge? And I was like, oh my God, this guy. So yes, thank you for remembering him.
Well, if you had met him, he would have taken you to the sleaziest bars and backstage. He said he would have done it.
Thank you. I would have gotten an education. Okay, Brett.
Well, on that note, no, Tim was a close friend, and both Tims. Yeah, he never always had a smile, no matter when he saw you, no matter what it was. And we were part of his welcome here in the Valley when he first was thinking of moving here, and a wonderful person. But I wanted to give a personal shout out to Jennifer Morton. Jennifer. Jennifer is a couple different things. She's one of our newest board members for HARP PS, but most importantly, she's a colleague and a co-patriot on all of our marketing, our activities. She is our voice, and a national voice that has taken Palm Springs and created articles on Jeff, articles on HARP, on Timothy Ray Brown, on people, the unsung hero in many, many, many places, and has put it in the national stage with Pause Magazine. And I can't thank her enough, because I'm always excited, and I you know, I used to read Pause, and I say used to, because then I just got busy in life, and all of a sudden it's like, it's now my feed. It's now the stuff that comes to me, and I'm so thankful that I also then know the person who in many cases is editing and writing these things. So thank you very much, Jennifer.
Yay, Jennifer.
Thank you. I just want to say, you know, what we do at Pause is just to tell everyone's stories. So thank you for sharing your stories, for being part of this. You know, Greg, what you said, by opening yourself and being vulnerable, you're sharing your experience with somebody else, and you're empowering other people by doing that. So thank you for everyone for being here today and being part of this. It's just incredible to hear so many voices and stories and see all your smiling faces. You know, it's hard when we can't be here together, but we are together. And remember that. So we have each other.
And it is important to remember, right? That, like, so sometimes it just feels like, oh, for some of us, it feels, oh, it's just old hat. Oh, we've been doing this forever. But you just don't know who you're lifting, or whose life, whose door you are opening up, who you are giving courage and strength to as a result just of you sharing your story, just of you opening up and giving a little bit of who you are. It's so incredible. I'm gonna end with a story. I'm gonna end with a story because I saw you come on, Brad, so don't try and throw me out. So I'm gonna tell. So in the earliest days of HIV, I went to a workshop because there weren't any medications. So I went to, you know, everything from, you know, all the gurus, everything. I did all the crazy stuff. I was like the one that was in charge of, like, who was the least likely person to bring any kind of healing, and I would go to them. So I went to this one workshop, and it was this woman who was like, she said, all we're gonna do is tell our stories. And I heard that there was some guy that used to be deaf and that he could hear now. And so I was like, okay, well, she's healing the deaf, then I'm gonna go to this workshop. And I went to this workshop, and I sat in the front row, and this was like, it was in the 80s, right after I tested positive. And I was feeling like the disease pariah. I was so ashamed and felt like so dirty. And she said, all we're gonna do is share our stories this weekend. And the first guy gets up and tells the story, and I'm like, oh my God, I love that guy. And then the next guy gets up. It was all gay men, you know, because it was our disease in the early days. It was just us. And the next guy gets up and he tells the story, and I'm like, oh my God, I love that guy. And the next one, and the next one, and each one, I'm like, oh my God, I love that guy. And all of a sudden it hits me. It's like, oh my God, I love all these guys. They're so good. They're so innocent. You must be too. how many of us carried the shame of being positive, or that we had done something wrong with this burden. And when each person shared their story, how we lifted and we said, that person's good, that person's whole, that person's beautiful, that person's innocent. So I love how sharing our stories, we heal a community one by one, or all of us together. It's very important. So I'm so grateful. I'm going to do the job that I was hired to. You're supposed to stretch, maybe go pee or something like that, because there's a big shot. Isn't that true,
No,
Brad?
we're on time. No, we're right at the time. We are
Aren't
at the
they supposed to
appointed
do
time,
something?
Greg.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, we're actually
Javier
going.
is coming up next, so we want everybody.
Well, I thought that's what my job was before he started, that you were supposed to stretch. Stay where you are. Listen to Brad.
No, we do need to stay. And
Thank you, Greg. No, you did a terrific job.
Yeah. And what an absolutely beautiful way to end. And we just had to do a quick mute and unmute. So we've muted actually everyone for our final presentation this evening.